Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, how are we getting on? Welcome to a brand new camp build, and I've been very excited to share this one with you all week, because I think this is one of my favourites that I've done in quite a long time. It's really cool. So, let's jump in and take a look, shall we? Okay then, so Cosy Woodland Camp, quite like this one, and very pleased with how it's come out. But first up, let's take a little look at where we are on the map. So, as you can see, we are over near Point Pleasant, and you may recognise this spot if you've been around and watching the builds for a while. I've been here before. There's Marigold Pavilion, Hunter's Ridge, which is a very cool location just down there, and of course Fort 76 over here, so all the way over on the western side of the map. If you want to find this place, head down from Marigold Pavilion. It's the easiest way to find it, and there's a sort of a power pylon about where I'm looking now, so that's a useful landmark to help you find it, sort of just over the cliff edge, just over the hill there. Well, it's a good spot this, nice and flat. There's plenty of trees you can bulldoze, but there's also a few that you can't that kind of add character to the area. So, speaking of bulldozing, let's do that first, because we want to clear some of the stuff out on the ground so we can really see what we've got to work with here. Let's see, it's a decent open space with a good bit of character to it. It's also worth mentioning, unfortunately, here that I think partially because of the settings I've got with the shadows get a bit dark in places, so I do apologise in advance for that. I need to tweak that a little bit, I think. But you know what the game's like for frame rates, and dipping the shadow quality is the best option for that, so it's a bit harsh in places, but we will manage. So, first up, mobile home trailer. This thing is really cool, and I've not actually used it yet. It was added a few months back. One of the cool sets that came alongside the makeshift Mega Mansion. And we're going to try and push this back about as far as we can do here. So there's sort of two trees here that I want it to sort of snug up against. So there's this one right in front of us and the one at the other end as well. There's a little bit of trial and error required to put this into place, and I also want it to sit pretty low down as well. I don't want it too sort of tall and towering over everything else. So we've got it as low as we can. We're going to nudge it back. You see this one on the right, this tree on the right is going to be sort of just behind the corner, whereas the one on the left is going to be up at the edge. And with a little adjustment, it's kind of nice and snugly in between the two of them, which is convenient and works well for the rest of the layout. So that's our starting point. And next we're going to start with the house. So this is going to be a very small cottagey type deal. I sort of played around a bit here to try and figure out exactly where I wanted it to be. We're going to figure out where the front edge of it's going to be first, and then sort of work from there. So this is on a bit of an angle here, so I wanted it about 90 degrees to the trailer there. So we'll tweak that a little bit. And I want it a little bit out from the tree. I don't want it too close to it, otherwise it will feel a bit too tight and enclosed in here. That should do the job there, so we'll push that back a little. That's the inside foundations sorted, and we'll put some porches on the front. So we're going to use the haunted house ones here, because they're quite pretty and don't necessarily have to look too spooky. And I've used the corner pieces here, but I'm actually going to change them out for the regular straight foundations, the porches rather. Largely because, as cool as these look, they just don't look quite right on their own on the front. I did think about actually expanding this place out a little bit and making the building a bit bigger, but it would have been too big there. So we'll stick with what we've got here. So we're going to have blank walls at the back to kind of secure up the back of the camp here, the outside edge. And with these two end walls, we're going for two half walls and having the window a little higher up. And the idea there is basically because of the furniture inside. I don't like putting things like beds, stuff like that, in front of windows. Same with the kitchen area, which will be down this end eventually, either. So pushing the window up like that just means that you've got a blank wall behind it. And it just looks a little neater. So swap these porches out just for the straight ones, and that'll look considerably neater. The profile just works better that way. Especially from the position down here on the ground. You also find that the vines that are climbing all over this haunted house set look a little better from the front if you've got this set on there than the corner ones. So that's the other reason I did it. I'm going to use the smallest of the staircases here because I don't need anything larger. It still blends in just fine, and it won't sort of stick out and get in the way so much there. Sometimes it can interfere with placing other things, so taking up less room is generally the way to go here. Let's get a roof on here. I'm going to go across the main structure. And it gives it a nice kind of profile, this. It looks pretty cool. Especially with the roofs that come with the haunted house set. It works quite nicely and avoids any boxiness to it, which is really cool, and I like how it's come out. So, drop down, have a little look at that. There we go, you can see the sort of profile there. Looks quite pleasing, I think. So yeah, you can sort of see the shadow issues I was having, particularly on the porch there, which is sadly unavoidable, but we'll see if we can fix this in future. So, onto the side, I want a little kitchen garden here, and I'm going to tweak this a little bit and make it a bit bigger in the decoration phase. But for now, we're just going to line things up and then extend the fence around, sort of off the end of the building here. It's going to be basically the same size as the house. Definitely want to start here at the back, because if you start at the front where the gate's going to be, things are not going to be quite the right size. For some weird reason, the gate doesn't seem to be exactly half the size of one of these larger chain link fences. These are also part of the haunted house set, and wanted to make good use of them because I'm very, very pleased to have these at long last. They're very cool. So, speaking of the gate, we'll flip that around because it only snaps on one side. The right-hand end here doesn't actually have a snapping point, which is weird. And as I said, you can see things don't quite fit there. This is obviously not quite as straight as I thought that back fence was, and it also overlaps with the building as well, which is slightly annoying. But if we turn the snapping off, we've got that option for fences and the like now. You see down at the bottom there. We can sort of manually squeeze this in. I'll have to pull the gate out, get it out of the way first. And once we put the gate back in, any sort of slight misalignment will be hidden by the gate, so that's kind of fine. So the debate here was, do I have the gate facing the right way around, or do I put it on backwards like this? Well, it wants to snap backwards, so there's that. And it also opens outwards if you have it the right way around, and that really didn't work for the camp I had in mind. And I don't know why Bethesda have been doing that lately with the doors and stuff. They do it a lot in 76 and make them open outwards. No idea why. It makes no sense whatsoever to me, but it is what it is. So in this case, we'll put it on the other way around. As you see, it works there. And the gate does hide the overlap quite nicely, especially with the shadows. But when we flip it back around, it snaps into place. It's a tiny bit neater, and the gate opens inwards, which is just generally better. So, nice and simple. A little fenced off area that will become our kitchen, garden, farm type area. And we're going to drop the seedy shed in next. So I pushed this up as close to the fence as I could, but I'll actually be moving it slightly further away in a moment, as you'll see why. But this kind of blends in with everything else quite nicely and goes with the colours in this location. The idea here is to kind of push it back a little further so that it kind of lines up with that tree that we were on here at the end, because this is basically going to be the front corner of the camp. It actually wants to be a little further back, as you can see there, than the tree is, because we want a decent bit of open space in the front. I'm actually going to end up with it being slightly too open, but we'll fix that in the decoration phase. So, as I say, it just looks a little better, a bit more pleasing to the eye, and when we drop this structure in, it can sit right up against the tree. So I'm quite happy with how this one came out. This is going to be my little hot tub section, so I can kind of take a couple of ideas here that I've seen in various places and put them together to form something new. I'm really happy with how it came out. It's a nice little structure for our hot tub. So one of the cool things about building here is the ground is somewhat forgiving for putting their foundations really low down. As you can see here, that's as low as you can ever get it, and a lot of places won't let you go that low either, so that's quite a cool thing here. And with the hot tub in particular, you definitely do want this as low as possible, because the stairs on the front are pretty cool, but pathing up them, if the foundation is any higher, can be a bit of a problem. So having it really, really low works for this particular structure. The other issue we've got, as you can see in just a sec, is that the hot tub is slightly longer than the foundation, particularly that mechanical part on the back, the pump. So we're going to need two foundations of length here. So we're going to push this a little further back because I don't want it sticking out that much. There we go. Whip that off. Now we'll put this porch on the front. Realise it's the wrong way around. There we go. And now we can just put this hot tub back in, and it should be a lot more pathable, and it will fit quite nicely. And we'll put the railings on afterwards as well. If you put the railings on first, it doesn't really work. So that more or less works, but now we've got the powered part, the pump, sticking outside under the roof, which doesn't make a right lot of sense. It doesn't look very neat either, so we'll swap it out for a second porch piece, snap that on the back, which apparently went in just fine underneath there. And now we basically have it. So now we can start dressing the thing up. We'll stick some railings on the side, keep that kind of woodland autumnal vibe going, which really captured in this one. Really came out very autumnal. I like it a lot. And there we go. We'll get some stairs on. Don't actually need the second set because the decoration phase they got in the way in, but they'll do for now. Actually, when you sometimes try and place things over the top of the stairs as they sort of clip beneath the ground, then stuff starts sinking in. It causes problems. So minimal stairs is definitely the way to go to avoid unfortunate interactions. So, closing up gaps a bit now, again with the chain link. That one snapped very nicely onto the end of the existing piece and went straight through the side of the CD shed, which is convenient actually. It means we can close the gap much more snugly. I'm going to move this CD shed over a bit, slightly easier to do from the front than the back. It doesn't jump around so much for some reason. So we'll adjust that slightly. Shove this back in. And there we go, and it doesn't clip inside now. Nice fit. And next we need to close up this gap. So those rocks are going to have to go. So they're slightly in the way. But we're just going to put a couple of chain links here just to close this off and extend out to meet the back of the hot tub structure there. As it turns out, the positioning of the house that we built earlier, the second thing we built, is actually key to whether or not this gap closes properly. So you kind of have to wing it, play it by ear if you want to do something similar. And definitely do a bit of trial and error as I did here. But in this case, I managed to sort of somehow eyeball it so that everything was basically spaced out at the right size. As you can see there, it's almost a perfect fit. A little bit of adjustment needed, and a little bit of trial and error, but there we go. That's definitely snug enough. Closes up the gap on both sides. But yeah, if the house had been in a slightly different position, it might not have worked so well. So a little bit of improvisation may be needed if you want to do something similar yourself. So, last couple of bits and pieces before we move on to decoration and the tour. I want a couple of defensive emplacements in, and I want to sort of close off the front end, but not completely. If I fenced it off, it would be too enclosed, and it also doesn't quite fit right. So we're just going to kind of imply it here. We'll drop a guard post in beside the two trees here. The tree on the right, however, will bulldoze, so I don't want to do that, so it's got to be positioned very, very carefully so that tree doesn't disappear. I had to do this 2 or 3 times actually, but it works. A little bit of care in your placement and it works. So we'll drop some hay bales in on this side. Pile them up, and it'll sort of imply a closed front side without actually closing it off, which works quite well. And as I say, it makes the central space feel a bit more open, but also complete. So I'm going to add one more thing here, just to bring that a little further round, with this Free States trailer bed. It's piled high with junk, looks pretty good. And again, I'm just going to turn this around the corner and get it nice and close to the tree, make sure it doesn't bulldoze like that. Very careful placement. And there we go. So the last couple of bits and pieces now before we finish off and move on to the decoration. This is almost decoration in and of itself. We're going to put a couple of these farmable tiles in, more for prettying the place up rather than actual functionality here, but it does the job quite nicely, as you'll see in a second. So snapping 2 on to get the placement right, and then we'll drop this first one down, because I want it to be, again, as low as we can, so it doesn't hide too much of the house. Now it sits snugly up. So we can move this one over, and in this particular place where I had planned to put one, it's going to close the gap down a bit too much. You won't really be able to get through to the front of the house, so we'll move this over here and just have the 2. Which turned out to be a good thing anyway, because I absolutely cram this place with decoration, as I usually do. Get that carefully lined up, and we should be about ready to decorate that stuff. Incidentally, if you do want to see the decoration, let me know in the comments as well, because I seem to have accidentally recorded about 3 hours worth of decoration footage. Don't know how it happened, but it did, so if you really want to see it, I could probably make something out of that, so do let me know. So what I'm doing here is sort of closing off the back of this structure with the hot tub on it with the chain link, as you can see. The idea is just to kind of give it more an enclosed, complete, secure vibe, with keeping that autumnal look as well. You can basically clip these chain link fences into the porches quite nicely, although they do start to get in the way a bit when you want to put the railings back in, if you want to do that. In this case, I can't get this one to snap back in. If I hadn't taken it out, the chain link would not have gone in. So, a bit of an issue there. So I'm going to dress it up with this encampment fence for now, that I'll actually change out for an ordinary fence during the decoration phase. You'll see it in the tour, but that one looks a little too raidery for the job. Still, that's the construction done, so let's decorate. And here we go, the tour. So yeah, as I say, really pleased with how this place looks. It's very homey, very cosy, warming, welcoming, kind of autumnal forest camp, and I suspect I'll be here for a while, and you'll be seeing it on streams for a while as well, so do keep an eye out for those. I really like this place. I've been, as I say, very keen to show you this one since I did it earlier in the week. Nice little front aspect, lots of life plants and splashes of colour, and it looks cool. in my humble opinion. So swing around the side a little bit. I'm not going to go all the way around the outside, partly because pathing around there is a bit awkward with the stuff I've put in, partly because we'll be here all day as it is. Squeeze that symptomatic in the corner there. Works quite nicely. Actually, didn't realise it was clipping through the fence a tiny bit, which normally it's a bit awkward about doing, so can live with that though. It tucks it a bit further back and it's out the way. You can see the chain link works really nicely in forest builds as well, because the brown colour blends in, so looking nice, I think. Like that quite a lot. There's a couple of trees over at the back behind the house that I added myself as well, just to kind of bring the forest in a little bit, the vibe of it, make it seem a little bit more complete, rather than being a little bare out back. And as you can see, I went crazy on the decoration. Looks like these two farmable plots here are more for the decoration than they are for functionality, so quite like the way those look. Got a few of the pumpkins in because, you know, just picked those up, got to make use of them. And I haven't used the hot tub either, which is one of the reasons I wanted to squeeze it into this build. I've seen other people decorate it up a bit like this before as well, and it does make it look way, way cooler. So I thought I'd put my own spin on that, put some plants and some statuary there as well. Have a little look down the gap here, which is a bit of a sort of functional area. A couple of stash boxes to dress it up a bit with. Little sign on the side. And we've got the symptomatic, and I tucked the power armor stand in there because it wouldn't really fit anywhere else in the camp. It would have looked out of place and stuck out too much, but tucked around the back there, it fits in nicely and does the job. So I like the way that looks. Head back through the decon arch. See, I dropped the little fireplace in there just to kind of put something in this otherwise very open space. It makes it a tiny little bit awkward to move around, but it does look good, so you know. So I turned the rest of this seedy shed into my marketplace, as it just had plenty of room after I dropped the generator in here. Obviously need a decent bit of power for the decon arch. But yeah, a few little plushies, some mannequins to dress the place up with, and we've got a nice little vending space in front as well. And I use the planetarium lamp, which I don't use often enough as well, so that's nice. One of the cool things about the seedy shed is if you push that generator over towards the back, the roof dips. So the connector on the top of it actually sticks through the roof, so you don't need to faff around too much when you're wiring up, which is quite helpful. So we'll have a little look at our farm here. Plenty of corn, plenty of gourds. Little pro tip on the gourds, by the way. If you put those in, well, after the corn in this case, but before you put the other decorations in, you can basically place decorations on top, but putting the gourds in afterwards won't work. You can see there in the back I've extended that little section of fence out a little bit so it can squeeze the collector on in there. Got to have my Nuka-Cola supplies. But he's obviously backwards in there, but it means he stays stuck in the corner and doesn't go tramping around my camp and making a ton of noise, so that's a bonus, and he still collects even though he can't move around. Squeeze my shelter just in the corner here, because, you know, got to have one. It tucks in quite nicely and is kind of out of sight. Blends in well, I do like that. I do love that spooky well as well, so got to drop that in somewhere. Works well with this sort of camp. I'm using the word well far too much. There we go. A few little bits of decoration out front on that plot there. More pumpkins. I really love how the front of this house has turned out. The little leaves on the main building and all the plants they used in the decoration sort of blend well together. Even those sort of Christmassy logs that I finally got round to using put out a really nice light. Really quite a lot more light than I thought they would as well. And they fit quite nicely on this build as well. I had to use the fireflies too, as I've don't do that very often. They're not putting out a great deal of light, but they're nice kind of accent pieces. Bit annoyed about that bit of grass clipping through the floor though. So here we go, our tiny little house. Just enough room to squeeze in what we need. It turns out that Vault-Tec bed is no larger than a single bed, even though it looks like a double. So that's actually quite convenient. It made it fit in the space a lot better. I thought I was going to have to use one of the singles, but this looks way, way better. So happy about that. Plenty of decoration. Do love the Liberator. Seen quite a few people putting plushies on shelves lately, so thought I'd have to have a go at that myself. It does look cool and provides a different bit of wall decoration to the usual stuff, so that's nice as well. Also, the larger plushies like Grum there and the Wendigo Colossus and possibly the Sheep Squatch, so I'm not sure about that one. It turns out you can interact with them. They make sounds when you do that, which I had never noticed before. So that's cool. Don't know if it's something they've added retrospectively or I just missed it all this time. But very, very cool. You can go and interact with those. Spooky Halloween bowl there for the next few days at least. I don't know. I may leave it there for a while, or I may change the decoration on that table. So in this back corner, I know I didn't show myself fencing it off, but it sort of just runs around the tree here. I wanted to make sure the porch was inside the fenced off area to make sure it was secure. That left us with a little bit of space back here, so squeeze the toilet back here. I've got the wires running around the back here as well. You could also put conduits on the tree if you didn't want to have the pylon in the back corner there, but I'm happy with how that looks. Swing back around and have a look at the mobile home, which is going to be our crafting shed, I suppose. I think it works quite well for that, given its otherwise beaten up vibe. It's a cool piece, this particular prefab, but it's not particularly homely. You see I've swapped out the door there for the red rocket one, just to add a splash of colour to the front, because the door that comes with this thing is kind of bland and horrible. So, I mean, it makes sense, but I wanted it looking a little different. As per, tons and tons of decoration crammed in here. Also got the workbenches in and figured out which way around I wanted them. Adding loads and loads of detail to it just gives it that more completed, lived-in, homely look. A little chem and alcohol crafting station down this end of the building as well, which fit quite nicely in this sort of section to the right of the door. A few little bits of decoration. Do like it. Of the whole camp, though, there's one thing in there that we'll come to in just a moment, because I want to take a little look around this in the evening, that I'm not quite happy with that crafting space, but we'll touch on that in a moment. And we have a look around at the evening tour, because I do like the lighting in this place. It's very warm and welcoming. It's come out quite nicely, so worth taking a look at. Yeah, do like this spot. It's the decoration in particular has just pulled it all together in a nice kind of autumnal, homely vibe, especially with the mute fruit and the razor grain having that kind of yellowy brown colour as well that kind of fit with the season. Arguably the sundew plants at the back there might be a bit much, but on the other hand I think they kind of blend in quite well and add a splash of colour that works nicely. So let's have a look around this place in the evening, shall we? You'd want that one sign out the front just to dress out the outside a little bit. See, we've got a couple of turrets there, one on the front. There's one on top of the mobile home and another on top of the CD shed. So we do have a little bit of trouble with the odd scorched and feral ghoul around here. So a little bit of defences to either take them out or warn me that they're there is always handy. And there we go. See the oil lamps pulling good duty there, doing well. Had that really nice autumnal, in this case, warm vibe, so do like the welcomingness of this. And I noticed in the evening, you don't really see during the day, you can peer through that window and see all the colours and stuff from the planetarium light, which is nice. And the CD shed really keeps that planetarium light inside. Some building pieces you'll find the light just kind of goes straight through them, which is a bit odd, but it is what it is. With the CD shed that doesn't really seem to happen, so it's a good place to be using that. The mobile home will actually do the same thing, I think, as well. So we'll see exactly why in a moment. But yeah, do like the way that has functioned. Kind of comes through the windows a little bit, and the door when it's open, but it contains it quite nicely. That gives a little bit of sparkle to our crafting area. We'll throw some Halloween decorations in there just to mix things up a little bit. A couple of bits and pieces on the wall. Kept it fairly simple in here, which turned out to be a good thing because I actually used about, I think you've got to be getting close for 2/3 of the budget on this thing, on decoration. It's way over half anyway, so really went to town on that, as you can see. We'll stick our head through the gate here and have a look at the farm. Obviously this doesn't need too much light in it, just enough to see what you're doing if you need to harvest some corn in the evening. It does the job nicely. Really nice fire effect on that fireplace, by the way. It's particularly well done. Do like that. So, as usual when I do things like that, chucked a lantern inside all the crops just to give them a bit more light, make them stand out a little bit more. And really see the light coming off these Christmas log chandeliers, I suppose, for want of a better word for them. Those light fixtures look really nice. The plants blend in quite nicely. Still wish we had a larger version of those wall planter sort of hanging basket things. They are quite nice, but they are very small. Coming on in here, we've got 3 sets of cage bulb lights to illuminate this place. Initially I was a little concerned that might be a bit much, but as it turned out I did need 3, so... The little Liberator light there doesn't put out vast amounts of light, so it's more of a decoration feature piece rather than an actual functional item in a way, in my opinion. But it is quite cool. I do like it. Swing back on out. We'll take a little look around our crafting structure. Mobile home shed thing. Nice little spot to hang out here as well. It's, like I say, warm, homely and welcoming. Just come together in a way that I'm very, very pleased with. So loads of decoration piled on the outside of this mobile home trailer as well, because otherwise it can be a bit bland. Also put some of the boards from the Halloween stuff, the window boards, over that particular window on the front there as well, just to make it look a little bit more interesting. Let's all head on inside. And we come to actually the one thing that I'm not particularly pleased with on this camp, and that's the lighting in here. So, again, it keeps the warming, cosy vibe, but it's a bit too dingy, particularly for a crafting space. You want to be able to see what you're doing. So, I would have liked to use something a bit brighter. Problem is, when you look at ceiling lights, stuff like that, they're way too bright, and you end up with a weirdly overexposed vibe. And detouring a moment, you can see the structure is keeping the light from that disco ball inside quite nicely, which is cool, even with the window there. Yes, brighter lights tend to be too much for the size of this space. The floor in particular ends up overexposed and stuff, so wasn't happy with how that looked. Yet smaller lights just don't put out enough. Maybe some of the floor lights might have done a little better, but again, squeezing those in might have been a bit of an issue with this. So, not quite happy with how that came out. I could maybe redo the lighting in there, pull some of the decoration apart and redo it if I wanted to, but... I'll have to scratch my head on that one over the coming weeks and see if I can think of a way to make that a little bit more illuminated. But otherwise, I am very, very fond of this camp. I do hope you'll be dropping in on the stream and seeing it a bit more there as well, because gonna be living here a while, I think. So, thank you all very much for watching. I do hope you liked that one. I do hope you stuck with, and that was a longer video, but I think it was worth it. If you did enjoy the video, please consider dropping subs and likes for me. I do very, very much appreciate it. Down below you can find social media links, the merch store, and channel memberships as well if you're interested in supporting the channel in that way. I very, very much appreciate it. It massively helps out, so huge thanks to everyone who's done that. And as I say, do join us for live streams as well. We are, of course, playing Fallout 76 and The Witcher as well at the moment, which is a lot of fun. So I do hope to see you there. But for now, thank you very much for watching. I look forward to speaking to you all very, very soon.